All he did was look in the mirror and stumbled on a multi-million-dollar idea. In the 60s, windshield wipers ran at one fixed speed. They couldn't adjust to how hard it was raining, and they'd squeak as the rubber dragged across the glass. For drivers, it was pure torture. That endless back and forth was practically hypnotic, making driving in the rain a real safety hazard. But turn the wipers off, and the windshield would blur over in seconds. Every major automaker was racing to find a solution. Bob is a college physics professor. His students love his witty, engaging lectures, and he loves tinkering with inventions in his spare time. One day, looking in the mirror, inspiration strikes. What if he built a device that works like the human eye? One that automatically adjusts to the rain? That would be a game-changing invention. The thought alone gets Bob fired up. He calls it the intermittent windshield wiper. But reality hits him hard. Getting a wiper to work intermittently is no easy task. Changing the mechanics clearly isn't the answer. So Bob decides to use electronic components to control the motor instead.
It's like your eye right there. See that, the way it blinks away a tear?
And we could try a bimetallic timer. It responds to heat changes, but then of course what do we do on a cold day?
With his two sons helping out, Bob puts together a makeshift R&D team. Using transistors, capacitors, and resistors, he gets the wiper working intermittently. Bob knows this invention will change the entire auto industry. He stares at the prototype for a good half hour. He thought this invention would give his family a better life. What Bob never imagined was the devastating price he'd pay for it. To celebrate his breakthrough, Bob takes the whole family out to dinner. He tells the kids, this country produces 20 million cars a year. If every single one used his wipers, the payoff would be beyond imagination. Bob then goes to see a friend in the auto glass business and demonstrates his invention to him and his boss. The boss can hardly believe it. Every major car company has been chasing this technology, and an ordinary college professor beat them all to it. Bob proposes mass-producing the intermittent wiper, but the boss throws cold water on the idea. Inventing and manufacturing are two different things. Without any real-world application, rushing into production is a huge gamble. He says he needs to do some market research before deciding, but Bob's friend backs him all the way. He even files a patent for Bob through his glass company. Soon, the boss comes back to Bob. His research shows that Ford is very interested in this new type of wiper. If Bob lands a deal with Ford, the boss will fund the mass production. The next day, his friend hands Bob a fancy car to install the wipers on. Then the two of them head to Ford to show off the brand new invention. Ford's engineers can't wait to see Bob's demo. After all, they've spent a whole year on this and gotten nowhere.
All right, Bob, let's see what you got.
All right.
And Bob, we want you to do it with the engine running. We found that the heat can play havoc with some of the systems we've tried.
To keep them from peeking at his invention's secrets, Bob deliberately backs the car up several yards. But just as he confidently flips the wiper switch, disaster strikes. The wipers, tested countless times without a hitch, pick this crucial moment to quit on him. After a careful inspection, Bob finds a blown fuse. With the problem fixed, Bob flips the switch again. As the wipers swing in a steady rhythm, the engineers are absolutely floored. They can't believe an ordinary professor beat them to it. They can't stop raving about the intermittent design. One engineer suspects Bob is operating it by hand from inside the car. But when Bob steps out of the vehicle, the wipers keep running like magic. The engineer offers Bob some advice.
At a minimum, it's going to have to run 1.5 million cycles under real-time conditions and operate, what's the maximum temperature under the hood?
It's 270 degrees.
The engineer promises to report back to the higher-ups, but when formal negotiations begin, Ford's executive says they haven't received a sample yet and asks Bob to provide one first. They need to install it on a vehicle and send the test results to headquarters for approval. Bob has his reservations, but remembering he's already filed a patent, he lets his guard down and hands over a sample. Back home, Bob waits eagerly for Ford's answer. Before every meal, the whole family even prays for rain. Then one day, the skies open up. Bob drives the family down the road in a downpour, and the wipers work perfectly in the heavy rain. The whole family cheers with joy. Bob has even upgraded the wipers, so you can manually adjust the speed based on the rainfall, drawing puzzled stares from drivers across the road. Next, Bob kicks off his business plan. With the investment from his friend's boss, Bob quits his teaching job, finds a factory on the outskirts of town to build the wipers, and pre-orders a big batch of wiper motors. But just as he's gearing up for the big launch, his friend delivers terrible news. Ford has canceled the purchase. Since the two sides never signed a contract, Bob has no choice but to eat the loss. Looking at the factory under construction, Bob is crushed. He's forced to put his business plans on hold, not only paying back the investment money, but also covering penalty fees for the motor order. In an instant, Bob's life hits rock bottom. He has no choice but to return to teaching, slowly paying off his debts on a meager salary. He figures life will just go on like this, but 3 months later, on a rainy day, Bob happens to notice several cars equipped with intermittent wipers. Something feels very wrong. He quietly follows them straight to a Ford launch event. Turns out those cars are Ford's newest models, and the intermittent wiper is one of their big selling points. The crowd cheers for this revolutionary invention. Bob realizes Ford has stolen his idea. Then he spots the Ford executive nearby. But just as he tries to confront him, security throws him out without a word. Bob goes to his friend. he wants to sue Ford. His friend says he's already contacted the company, but they flat out deny stealing Bob's patent.
It's a goddamn lie. No, I took apart one of their motors, Gil. You know what I found inside? Transistors, capacitors, variable resistors. And that is my design.
Then his friend throws more cold water on him. Ford has already refiled a patent for the wiper, and the country's patent protection laws are still weak. A lawsuit would take years to fight. An ordinary guy like Bob can't fight a corporate giant with deep pockets. He tells Bob to go back to work and promises to figure something out for him. But back at school, Bob can't focus on teaching anymore. He keeps making mistakes in class. Even simple formulas need correcting by his students. Bob calls his friend for updates, but the friend keeps dodging his calls. So Bob shows up at his door. His friend admits his company has supplied glass to Ford for years. He can't afford to lose that partnership over Bob.
Tell me one thing. Are you backing out of this?
This is Detroit, Bob. I did $17 million in business last year.
I'll go it alone.
No, leave it alone. Bob, it's not over yet.
To get hard evidence, Bob quietly tails one of Ford's newest models, and when no one's looking, secretly removes the wiper unit from the car. With no money for a lawyer, Bob and his wife gather the lawsuit materials themselves. But this lawsuit will drag Bob and his family into a bottomless spiral. The fight for justice is long and grueling. They send Ford countless letters of complaint, all of them ignored. The constant stress gives his wife a skin condition, and Bob reaches a breaking point. One night, after his wife falls asleep, Bob simply walks out. He boards a bus alone to a strange city. Staring at a kite in a shop window, Bob breaks down. Maybe his friend was right. A little guy like him is no match for a corporate giant. Soon, police find Bob on the bus. His wife, worried sick, had called them. Bob is admitted to a recovery facility for 2 months. After the doctor's evaluation, Bob is discharged. His wife and kids are waiting for him. On the surface, the family seems happy again. But inside, Bob is still suffocating. He can't forgive Ford for what they did to him. Having lost his teaching job, Bob now lives on welfare checks. He uses that money to hire a lawyer. After hearing Bob's story, the lawyer is confident they can win the case. But first, they need to get his patent back. That's when Bob remembers the patent is still held by his friend's company. His friend doesn't want trouble with Ford, so he suggests Bob sue his company instead. That way, he can legitimately hand the patent back to Bob. Soon, Bob becomes the sole owner of the wiper patent. With the lawyer's help, Ford finally responds. They want to settle with Bob. They'll pay $250,000 if he signs a pledge never to pursue the wiper patent again. The lawyer calls it a win-win. Even his wife urges him to take the money and let it go. But Bob believes Ford stole his invention. They should admit it and apologize to him publicly.
If you're really thinking of turning this down, going to court, it's a very expensive proposition. It's not a good play.
I'm not talking about play, Mr. Lawson.
Bob wants Ford to give him justice. The lawyer points out everything he's put into the case. 15 rounds of negotiation just to get this offer.
If we prevailed, if the jury gave you the recognition you so obviously crave,
That's insulting.
it is doubtful that you would do any better than you would right now with this settlement. Because you're fighting a corporation that does not know the meaning of years or of money. They'll bury you with motions, injunctions, countersuits. They'll drown you in so many irrelevant documents that you'll wake up with cold sweats.
Still, Bob is determined to keep fighting. In the end, the lawyer gives up on him and officially withdraws from the case. His wife can't understand his decision either. That money would set the family up for life. Bob says he's not just doing this for himself. He wants to teach his kids what it means to do the right thing. The two have a huge fight. Unable to bear her husband's stubbornness any longer, his wife finally leaves, taking the kids with her. From then on, Bob fights alone. He takes a job at the university library, and after work each day, he pores over law books, teaching himself everything about patent cases. 4 years fly by. Bob's hair has gone gray. Then one day, a newspaper on his desk gives him fresh hope. He takes it to his son, now in college, a top student in law school. Turns out the government has passed new patent legislation designed to clear cases stuck in limbo for years. Bob wants his son to be his attorney, but his son still resents him. He sees Bob as a failure of a father, a man who, for the sake of his invention, destroyed a once happy family. His mother and siblings haven't had it easy all these years. In the end, his son turns him down. When Bob gets home, he finds a stranger at his door. The man claims to be a lawyer from Ford, here to talk about the patent. Maybe they saw the newspaper too. This time, Ford's offer is $1 million. Bob knows he now holds the upper hand. He's willing to settle, but only if Ford publicly apologizes to him in the papers.
Saying that they stole Robert Kern's invention and have done everything they can to deny me my day in court.
But the lawyer says for a giant like Ford, admitting theft would be an outright humiliation. The executives and shareholders would never allow it. Bob's done wasting words on him. He walks inside and shuts the door in his face. That night, as Bob digs through case files in the garage, his son shows up unexpectedly. He still has his grievances, but after much thought, he's decided to help. He can't bear to watch his father fight alone. Soon, the court accepts Bob's patent lawsuit, with his son appearing as his attorney. After 20 years, Bob finally faces Ford in court. Ford presents their blueprints for the intermittent wiper, explaining their design and how it works in detail. They even bring a working model into the the courtroom. Seeing this, Bob produces his own patent. Clearly, his design predates Ford's. Knowing they're in the wrong, Ford keeps arguing anyway. They claim Bob's invention doesn't qualify for a patent. He just wired together some common electronic components, a basic setup you see everywhere in electronics. You can't really call that an invention. Ford wants to use this to invalidate Bob's patent. Then there'd be no infringement at all. Facing Ford's twisted logic, Bob pulls out a copy of Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities and reads its famous opening lines aloud.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness.
He asks Ford, did Dickens invent the words in this book? Then Bob holds up a dictionary. Every word in that novel is in this dictionary. Dickens didn't invent a single word. He simply arranged ordinary words in a particular order. Does that mean he created nothing new? Bob's argument is a slap in Ford's face. The jury is clearly on Bob's side this round. During recess, his wife brings the kids to cheer him on.
How are you?
Yeah, good. I guess I should be thinking about going to law school.
They said it's been going great. I'm glad.
Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Soon, the trial resumes. Under patent law, Bob must explain how he conceived the invention. He gives the credit to his wife. Years ago, driving home with her, the constantly running wipers kept distracting him. Back home, looking in the mirror, it hit him. What if wipers worked like the human eye, clearing the rain only when needed? It would surely help countless drivers and take the misery out of driving in the rain. That's how the idea of the intermittent wiper was born. His heartfelt words win the jury over completely. Clearly, Bob now has the upper hand over Ford. That night, Ford's lawyer comes to see Bob again. This time, the offer is $10 million, hoping for an out-of-court settlement. That money would buy him and his kids a life anyone would envy. Bob knows how much he owes his children, so he leaves the decision to them. To his surprise, the kids are united like never before. They stand behind their father's fight for his name. Seeing this, the lawyer slinks away. The next day, Ford goes after Bob again in court. They dig up his past medical records. Bob doesn't deny it. Ford argues that his testimony can't be trusted, and the jury starts to have its doubts about him. Ford then tells the jury that they invented the windshield wiper back in the 40s. Bob merely made minor tweaks to their design. Their engineers were fully capable of developing it too. Bob just beat them to the patent office. They argue his patent should be ruled invalid. When closing arguments come, Bob delivers an impassioned speech.
Talking about are the things I did invent. And why is that? Because he can't. Used their influence and their money and all their corporate power. They have the arrogance to sit here and look you in the eye and say, no, the Ford company didn't do anything wrong. No, they knew it all along. When I walked into this courtroom, I was wearing a badge right here, and you couldn't see it. It said I was an inventor, contributor to society. So I'm not going to sit up here and try and interpret everything you've heard for these past few weeks. Just going to ask you to use your memory and your good sense to do the right thing.
After deliberation, the jury delivers its verdict. In the case of Bob versus the Ford Motor Company, the jury finds that Ford infringed on Bob's wiper patent. Given the harm the infringement caused him, Ford is ordered to pay Bob $11 million in damages. The courtroom erupts in thunderous applause. Bob waited 12 years for this moment, and it cost him his job, his family, and his wife. His wife is happy for his victory. She quietly slips out of the courtroom, and Bob hurries after her. But before Bob can ask her to stay, friends show up and interrupt the moment. Whether they'll ever reunite, we'll never know. Bob and the kids return to the restaurant where they once celebrated his invention. Just then, rain begins pouring outside. Watching the downpour, Bob is overcome with emotion. For justice, he gave up 12 years with his family, but he believes it was all worth it. This film is based on a true story. Bob is the real inventor of the intermittent windshield wiper. After the verdict against Ford, Bob won another $7 million in patent fees from a second automaker. Today, over 1.5 billion vehicles use the intermittent wipers Bob invented. Perseverance is a double-edged sword. It can earn you respect and acclaim, but it can also bring pain and loss. It can tear a peaceful life apart, yet it can also lead us to victory. Those who steal will pay the price in the end. Here's to the unsung inventors of the world. Their creations light up our lives like scattered stars, like guiding beacons in the night sky, leading us toward a brighter future.